How do you conquer evil, and what happens once the fight is over? That's what we're going to be talking about today because we're looking at the third book in the Lord of the Rings series. I've already reviewed the first two, so we talked about taking responsibility and taking up the journey on the first book. And then we talked about when it's time to fight, when it's time to say we're backed into a corner, we have to fight in the second book. The third book, we're going to be talking about actually winning the battle, what that looks like, and then how do you rebuild afterwards, because that's a key issue in this book for sure. And so that's what we're going to be taking a look at. That's what we're going to be discussing. And so with that, I just want to remind you to subscribe on YouTube, on podcasts, wherever you're listening to those, and make sure that you are leaving a good rating and review, comments. Those things help out with helping more people find what I'm doing with the conversation for our generation and get more people involved in the dialogue. Follow me on Twitter at Con of Our Gen or Facebook. Find me there as well. And head over to the Conversation for Our Generation website where you can now buy my book there, and there will be more to come. But definitely go over to conversationofourgeneration.com/subscribe. And for $5 a month, you will get access to all the courses. You will get my book, a signed copy, included in that. And then on top of that, you will get premium content coming down the pike. You'll get access, you'll be able to download the entire archive of podcasts. So that folder will be there for you to pull those down. And so lots of great stuff. More content will be coming, more courses in the future as well. So if you don't want to have to buy those individually, go over and subscribe for just $5 a month at conversationofourgeneration.com/subscribe. Do that, and that supports me, the work I'm doing here, and helps this conversation reach more people. Plus, you'll also get access at that point to the Discord server, which is currently reserved for a few friends that I've made on Twitter that if we can also expand that, but also the people who I've interviewed. So if you want to be able to talk to some of the people that have been interviewed on the podcast, I'm inviting each of them to the Discord server as well. So definitely check that out and get involved with the conversation for our generation. And so with that, let's hop into the quote of the week. And this one comes from near the end of the book. And so spoiler alert here, this is after the battle is won and the ring is thrown into the fire. And this is the part of the song that they sing in celebration. Sing and be glad, all ye children of the West, for your king shall come again, and he shall dwell among you all the days of your life. And the tree that was withered shall be renewed, and he shall plant in the high places, and the city shall be pleased. And so this is a great, joyful song of winning. And it's talking about the peace, the rejuvenation, the life that's going to come from conquering evil and from putting good in power. That's the key here, is that now the good king is in power and they are rejoicing that. And so the problem is that while this may be done in the sense of the battle being done, the battle is won, there's still a lot of work to do. And that's what you'll find in the next part of the book. But the big thing here is if we plan on conquering evil, we'll have to, I think, learn from these books and be ready to fight when all seems lost. Because right before this, it seemed hopeless. It seemed like they were fighting a battle that couldn't be won. They didn't know where Frodo and Sam were in in Mordor. They had no idea, and so they were just fighting a battle, hoping, without knowing, that they would be able to destroy the ring. And Sauron was getting more powerful every day, and yet they still fought. And so I think that that's important to recognize, is when things might seem most hopeless. So many success stories and people who've been successful talk about this, that right when it seems like everything is lost, you're ready to give up, that's when you just need to push a little bit harder, because that's when you're so close to winning. That's when you're so close to being done with the struggle and able to move on. And I think that that's what you see in this book. And I think that's where we need to push back and fight, because I think that we're seeing a lot of good early traction in pushing back and reclaiming the culture for good and pushing back against these materialist and postmodernist ideas. But we're not close to this part of the battle. We haven't gotten to the end of it. It's still very early on. And I think there's a lot more clashing that's going to happen in our culture. But winning the war takes courage and cunning and perseverance. And so we need to have that. I think we need to see it played out all the way through so we can know what we're in for in the future. And obviously, we're not going to be working with elves and wizards, but we are going to be working with interesting forces of nature that we don't understand. And I think that we have to be ready to contend with that. And so I said that I was going to discuss a little bit about the fallout too of when evil is defeated. What do you do then? Because I think we understand how to fight. I think we understand a little bit about that. But once you do defeat evil, it leaves a void. It leaves a lot of damage in the wake of it, right? There's a lot of things that need to be put back together. If you look at after World War II or World War One or all of these devastating times in American history after the Civil War, all these times throughout history where war has torn through a continent or a country and you have to rebuild, it's tough. You know, if you read the Old Testament, it's just time and time again it happens where the Israelites do well, they get prosperous, they forget about God, they get attacked, and then they repent and they do better. And it just is a cycle. And each of those times you have to rebuild with learning the lessons of the past. You have to remember what it was that allowed the evil to rise. You have to remember that complacency in it that you had that allowed for that to come into play. And as long as you can pass that down, I think the longer you can stave off the evil, you can stave off the bad things that come with it. But that's hard to do. And I think it's hard to get complacent people to recognize the fact that they're being complacent. And it's hard to keep people vigilant for between generations. And so I think it takes every couple of generations people getting knocked on their ass to wake up and realize, whoa, this is we got to do something about this. And I think we had that in on 9/11, but we didn't actually answer the call. We didn't. We did go to war, but we didn't really go to war with the real problems that allowed things to arise. We went and fought a war that made us feel good and that made us feel like we were doing something without actually solving an issue. It's like when your mom would, you'd get hurt and you'd think you're really hurt and they just kiss it to make it feel better. It's like that doesn't really do anything when it's a real wound. I need some peroxide or soap and wash this out in a band-aid and maybe stitches. A kiss ain't going to do it. And that's what that seemed like to me, is that we didn't contend with the real problems. And so we are still in this place where we're battling it and we're battling against evil in our culture. And I see it all the time. I mean, just the abuse of children, what we're seeing with immorality being raised up, and especially with the sexual revolution being glorified in all ways, and so much negligence to the real problems that we have. And when we do have problems, we just demagogue on top of them instead of actually trying to solve them. And there's a lot of issues there. And I think we have a lot of work to do to push back in our culture. I think we're somewhere between book one and book two, but I want to have us ready for that when we do solve a lot of these issues, when we do push back and reclaim the culture as people who actually believe in truth, goodness, and beauty, and love and virtue, and people who even, I don't even want to say religious necessarily. I do think it'll predominantly be Christians and faithful Jews, as well as probably many Muslims, people who do have a faith, uh, who do have some sort of faith in a higher power. I think that those are going to be the people who push back against this, because what we're facing is a culture that is hostile to those standards that those faiths put forward, and especially the ones that they put forward in common, like the issues of morality. And so after this, I think we have to make sure we build a resilient culture. We have to build with resiliency as throughout this battle, and make sure that when we come out of the other side, we have institutions that are in place ready to take the place of old ones, to find a way to replace things that are going away with something that already has its legs under it a little bit. And that's what we need to be focused on doing right now. And that's why I think this is important as a book. And I just think it's a great book. Again, I'm pulling out all these ideas and these lessons and trying to draw it to our time, regardless of when this is. I mean, heck, this could be being watched generations after me, for all I know, on the internet. This is still a quintessential story of the individual taking up their burden of inspiring others to fight and being a hope for others and winning, and what you do after that. And that is, I mean, just this story is fantastic. And for anyone who hasn't read The Lord of the Rings, if you've watched the movies, they're good. If you haven't read it, though, you need to read The Lord of the Rings. And there's links in the show notes, so definitely check that out. And definitely head over to conversationfourgeneration.com/subscribe to make sure you get access to all the extra content that's being spun up right now. I'm working on recording some more of the courses. I've got several of the outlines done and ready to go to get classes 2 through 4 ready. And so we're almost about a third of the way, basically, then through the Nicomachean Ethics. I don't know. I'm going to keep listening to Spencer Clavin say it because he says it right, I assume, as someone who knows Greek. But I'm going to keep going through that book. I'll let you know as those come out, but it'll only be for subscribers, or once the course is fully finished, you'll be able to buy it there. I'm thinking about breaking it out as well, so you can go through each of the books, or you can buy the full course on the Golden Mean. Either way, just subscribe for $5 a month. You get access to that. You get access to the Discord channel. You get the full library of podcasts. You can download that, and anything in the future that I publish. I'm working on some ebooks, working on new books. You get my current book sent to you. So definitely check that out. Maybe more merch coming down the pike as well. So subscribe. And if you're subscribing now for $5 a month at conversationfourgeneration.com/subscribe, you'll be the first to get access to all the things, because I want to take care of the early people who are supporting me. So supporting me early on, you'll get taken care of for sure. So thank you. And make sure that you're subscribing as well to the podcast, to my YouTube channel, so that you get notified when these things come out, and you can check those out, share this with other people, and get more people involved in the conversation of our generation. And let's get the dialogue going. I'll talk to you next time.